The so-called party of small government keeps trying to exert extraordinary influence over American universities, with President Trump today threatening Harvard's tax-exempt status just one day after announcing that the government would freeze $2.2 billion in grants to the university. Now, the government's push to defund higher education follows Harvard's refusal to give in to administration demands for government oversight and reforms, including requirements to audit the viewpoints of the student body, faculty, and the staff. Harvard responded saying, quote, "No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue." Now, Harvard's refusal notably bucked a trend of universities and companies and law firms bending the knee when faced with Trump's threats of retribution, a fact celebrated by former President Barack Obama, a Harvard Law School alum who wrote, "Harvard has set an example for other higher ed institutions." Senator Bernie Sanders added, "Instead of doing pro bono work for Trump, cowardly law firms should be defending those who believe in the rule of law." Joining me now is Christina Greer, Associate Professor of Political Science at Fordham University and co-host of the FAQ NYC podcast. I think it's notable that it took Harvard to do something for President Obama to say something. I just want to put that out there.
Listen, I want to put that out there because President Obama has been resoundingly silent these past few months, much to the chagrin of many people. And so it is incredibly important that Harvard has taken such a clear stand against what this administration is trying to do, and it will hopefully serve as a domino effect for other universities. I think a lot of us in academia were really wondering if Harvard acquiesced to the demands and the bullying of the Trump administration, that would really set the tone for much smaller universities and colleges, universities that don't have the endowment that Harvard does. This is the question of, what is an endowment for, but these times. And so Harvard right now is doing the opposite of what Columbia has done thus far. And hopefully they'll set a new tone and a new precedent and a new direction for universities to follow.
In case anyone missed it, Columbia agreed to Donald Trump's demands after they stripped the federal funds. Many people are very concerned that this happened. These are Donald Trump's retribution targets. There are law firms. We have a graphic that has it all. Covington and Burling, Perkins Coie. You can see the law firms on the screen. Then you've got higher education. He's targeted Columbia, Princeton, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, Brown, Cornell, Northwestern. The list goes on. Cultural institutions, the Smithsonian Institute, the Kennedy Center, Presidio Trust. This is intentional. It is very intentional. And I know everybody likes to compare Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin, but this feels to me like what President Bukele has done in El Salvador and what Maduro has done in Venezuela, what Orban did in Turkey. He's taking pieces from all of his, favorite little dictatorial authoritarians and executing that playbook here in America. And it feels as though, Christina, that very few individuals, institutions, and groups are up to the task of standing up to him.
Right, which is why I think the Harvard news today is so important. But, Simone, one key institution that isn't in this long laundry list with law firms that should be doing more and should be better actors, universities that should be doing more, cultural institutions that are trying to do more, but media institutions that should be doing more. We saw this during the campaign. Certain legacy media institutions choosing not to endorse Kamala Harris or choosing to change their editorial pages to make sure that they don't critique Donald Trump. This is out of an authoritarian playbook. This is what Black women have been bringing the alarm about. This is of great concern when you have a president who ignores the 9-0 Supreme Court decision. This is the antithesis of Federalist 51 with checks and balances and separation of powers. So we are in dangerous times, but I am given sort of some solace from today's news because let's be clear, Harvard as our oldest institution of higher learning, when they do something, it does set a tone and it does set a precedent. As much as, sort of anti-intellectuals want to, poo-poo that, it is true. And so I'm hopeful that other presidents will finally get a spine and start to think about the long-term effects of the anti-intellectualism of this administration. And as Bernie Sanders said, hopefully some of these law firms will put some of that energy into helping university professors and students defend themselves and institutions defend themselves as opposed to doing the dirty work of the Trump administration.
Well, given those law firms, I will note that Donald Trump was sued by 2 more big law firms that he targeted in executive orders. And at the same time that happened, 5 more big law firms reached deals with Trump. This is just so crazy. I cannot say it enough. This is so crazy. It's infuriating. And then I was feeling very infuriated the other day. And then I opened up, my little apps, and I saw a New York Times op-ed from you. And you had a lot to say in that op-ed. I think people need to read it. It's called Black Americans Are Not Surprised. And this is part of what you wrote. Black people have seen this America before. We have endured throughout history's progress and regress, watching the arc of justice bend with the changing winds. Until we reckon with our fellow citizens' capacity, even hunger, for injustice, we will fail to meet, understand, and survive this political moment. Far too many well-meaning white Americans have been what I like to call ally ostriches, believing in progress while burying their heads in the sand when discussions around the past become uncomfortable. Christina Greer.
I said what I said. I mean, Simone, it was easy to write. It was frustrating as I started the op-ed saying, my grandmother said the only time I should be surprised is when I'm surprised. I think the frustration is a lot of people don't understand that this is America, as you said in a previous segment, where we don't have to look around to other countries to see the inequities and the injustice that have always been present in this country. And as Black Americans, we're keenly aware of, what happens when someone just decides that you don't have a job anymore, or decides that you can't, be in your neighborhood anymore, or just plucks you off of the street and makes you disappear. All of our grandparents had stories about those horrible instances in this country. So I'm hopeful that people will read it and take it seriously about how we can be collective actors together in this fight.